Welcome to the best way to clean your oven like a pro. I'm so glad you're joining us for another deep dive today. Usually when we look at our kitchen appliances, we see these sleek, predictable marvels of modern engineering.
Right, yeah, like you press a button on the microwave and your coffee just reheats perfectly.
Exactly. Or, you push a lever on the toaster and your bread perfectly browns. You turn a dial on the fridge and a mechanism drops perfectly cubed ice right into your glass. It's
Mm.
simple, it's reliable, and it's pristine.
It's a very controlled environment. You have this clean, expected transaction between you and the machine, right? And as long as you follow the basic inputs, the output is guaranteed.
But then you grab the handle of your oven, you pull that heavy door down, the little yellow bulb flickers on, and suddenly that sleek modern engineering completely vanishes.
Oh, totally. It just disappears.
You're staring into this dark, charred, apocalyptic cavern. I mean, it's like an archaeological dig site documenting every single culinary disaster you've had over the past, year.
The ultimate domestic nightmare. It's this intimidating, baked on historical record of spilled casseroles, Thanksgiving turkey splatters, and, frozen pizzas from months ago.
Yes. And unlike the fridge or the microwave, the oven actively hides its mess from you until you are forced to confront it.
Right, and confronting it makes us feel incredibly guilty. We look at it and we just know it's going to require hours of back-breaking labor.
Oh, inhaling awful fumes, ruining our weekend. But today, our mission is to take what is arguably the most universally dreaded household chore in existence, cleaning the oven, and transform it.
We want to take it from a guilt-inducing nightmare into a deeply satisfying, science-backed professional process. We are going to turn you into an absolute oven cleaning pro.
And we have the perfect source material to get us there. We are unpacking an expert masterclass transcript from the highly popular YouTube channel. Clean that up.
Yeah, in this breakdown, a professional cleaner lays out the exact step-by-step methodology and the specific tools required to bypass the frustration. It's all about letting chemistry do the heavy lifting.
Right, we're looking at professional extraction techniques scaled down for the home kitchen. And let me tell you, we have got some massive myth-busting coming up for you today.
Oh, absolutely. If you've been relying on Pinterest hacks, prepare to have your worldview shattered.
Seriously.
Uh-huh.
We're going to explain exactly why that fizzy baking soda and vinegar mixture you have been proudly using is actually completely useless, like chemically defunct.
It really is. And even wilder, we're going to reveal why pressing that tempting self-clean button on your oven's dashboard might actually be the most dangerous thing you can do in your entire house.
Okay, let's unpack this. So where do we actually begin?
Let's start exactly where the professional does, which is the pregame. Because before you can even begin to tackle the cavern of the oven itself, you have to address the immediate physical obstacles in your way.
Right, the oven racks.
Exactly. You cannot clean an oven with the rack still inside. It's just not going to happen.
Taking the racks out isn't just about clearing a path so you can, contort your arms into the back corners. I always assumed it was just to get them out of the way.
A lot of people do, but the source material emphasizes that removing them is actually step one of a highly strategic, two-pronged attack. Structurally, these racks are a nightmare.
They really are. They're nothing but hard-to-reach edges, interlocking metal wires, and these right angles where grease just loves to pool and harden.
Think about the geometry of an oven rack. If you try to scrub those cylindrical wires by hand while they are still in the oven, or even just sitting in your sink, you are going to exhaust your forearms.
Oh yeah, before you even touch the walls of the oven itself.
Exactly. You're trying to apply pressure to a curved surface, which means your sponge is only ever making minimal contact. So the pro strategy here is all about relocation and delegation.
Relocation and delegation, I like that. So what do we do with them?
You take those racks out completely and you drop them into your bathtub. Or, if you don't have a bathtub, a large plastic storage bin works perfectly too.
Okay, and then what?
You fill it with warm water, and then you add the secret ingredient, which is a single cascade dishwasher pod.
You just let them soak in the tub while you deal with the rest of the appliance. But see, this is the part that I found so fascinating, and it totally stopped me in my tracks.
The dishwasher pod?
Yeah. Why a cascade dishwasher pod? Why not just squirt a heavy dose of normal Dawn dish soap in there? I mean, we use liquid dish soap for greasy pans and baking sheets literally every single night.
Right.
What is the fundamental difference?
Well, it comes down to a massive divergence in the chemical composition and the intended function of those two products.
Okay, break that down for me.
So, standard liquid dish soap primarily relies on what we call surfactants. Surfactants are incredible molecules, but they have a very specific job. The word surfactant is actually a portmanteau for surface active agent.
Surface active agent. Got it.
These molecules have two ends. One end is hydrophilic, meaning it loves water, and the other end is hydrophobic, meaning it hates water but loves oil and grease.
So when I squirt dish soap onto a greasy frying pan, those molecules are basically attaching one arm to the water in my sink and the other arm to the bacon grease.
That's a great way to visualize it, yeah. They surround the grease, essentially reducing the surface tension of the water, allowing it to mix with the oil.
Okay.
It makes the grease slippery, lifting it away from the surface of the pan so it can slide off and be washed down the drain. It's a mechanical detachment process aided by chemistry.
Okay, but the grease on an oven rack isn't just sitting there like liquid bacon fat waiting to be slipped away. It's totally different.
Exactly.
It's been baked at 400 degrees over and over again. It's polymerized. I mean, it feels like it's become one with the metal at that point.
Precisely the issue. When fats and oils are repeatedly exposed to high heat, they undergo a chemical process called polymerization.
Polymerization.
Right. The individual lipid molecules break apart and then cross-link with each other, forming this dense plastic-like mesh.
Oh, wow.
It's the exact same process we use to purposefully season a cast iron skillet to make it non-stick.
That makes so much sense. But on your oven rack, it's an unintentional hardened shell of carbon and fat.
Exactly. And surfactants alone cannot penetrate or dismantle that cross-linked polymer shell. Making a plasticized shell slippery doesn't do you any good if it's molecularly bonded to the steel wire.
Which brings us back to the Cascade dishwasher pod. If dish soap is just surfactants making things slippery, what is the dishwasher pod bringing to the bathtub?
A dishwasher pod is formulated with a heavy concentration of specific biological catalysts, enzymes.
Enzymes.
Yeah. Enzymes operate on an entirely different scientific principle than surfactants. They don't just reduce surface tension, they actively, chemically break down and digest complex organic matter.
Wait, digest? Like they eat it?
Pretty much. A good dishwasher pod contains proteases, which break down proteins like baked-on cheese or meat juices, and lipases, which are specifically designed to break down and sever the complex bonds of hardened lipids, fats and oils.
So using a dishwasher pod in the bathtub is essentially like unleashing a million tiny microscopic Pac-Men to physically chew up and digest the baked-on grease mesh.
I love that, yeah.
Whereas regular dish soap is just trying to politely ask that hardened grease to slide off a cliff.
The Pac-Man analogy is actually remarkably accurate to how enzymes function. They use a lock-and-key mechanism to attach to specific molecular bonds in the grease, snip those bonds, and break the massive, stubborn polymer chains into tiny, water-soluble fragments.
Wow.
The enzymes are doing the grueling physical labor for you at a microscopic level.
I love that so much. And it really connects to a broader psychological flaw in how we approach household chores. Whenever we see a really tough baked-on mess, our immediate human instinct is to apply elbow grease.
Right, we just want to scrub.
We think the solution is just to scrub harder, to sweat more, to use a rougher sponge. We view cleaning as a test of physical endurance.
But the professional cleaner is defaulting to a totally different paradigm, which is dwell time and chemical matching.
Chemical matching.
Yeah, chemical matching is the hallmark of professional cleaning. You identify the specific nature of the soil, in this case, polymerized lipids and proteins, and you apply the specific chemical agent designed to dismantle it.
Which would be the enzymes here.
Exactly. And then, crucially, you step back and give it dwell time. You have to allow the chemical reaction to actually take place. The professional isn't sweating, they are managing a controlled reaction.
So by soaking the racks in the tub with the pod, you are essentially cloning yourself. One of you is in the bathroom mechanically digesting grease, and the other is standing in the kitchen staring at the empty oven cavity.
It's the ultimate form of working smarter, not harder.
So my clone is in the tub, the oven racks are soaking. I'm now looking at the completely empty interior of the oven. Which brings us to the next phase of the operation, the dry excavation.
And the source material points out that this is the exact moment where almost everyone makes a critical, fundamental rookie mistake.
Oh, the instinct is incredibly strong here. You have an empty, dirty oven, and you have a bottle of heavy-duty liquid cleaner in your hand. The natural impulse is to start aggressively spraying the walls, the floor, the ceiling, just blasting the entire interior with liquid.
But the pro cleaner is absolutely adamant. You must dry clean before you wet clean.
Before a single drop of chemical touches the inside of that oven, you have to extract the loose debris. And the example given in the masterclass is so universally relatable it hurts. It's the classic frozen pizza cheese drop.
Oh man, we have all been victims of the cheese drop.
You know exactly what happens. It's late, you're tired, you just want food. You slide a frozen pepperoni pizza directly onto the wire rack because you want a crispy crust.
Because the box told you to.
Right. And then 3 minutes later, a single square of mozzarella cheese melts, drips off the edge of the pizza, falls past the rack, and lands directly on the scorching hot metal floor of the oven.
And within seconds, it carbonizes into a rock-hard black meteorite.
And that meteorite stays there for 6 months, slowly burning and smoking every single time you preheat the oven. The protocol here is to remove those meteorites, along with all the loose crumbs, ash, and general detritus, before you introduce any liquid.
You can use a small hand brush, a dry paper towel, or, as the professional heavily prefers, a standard vacuum cleaner.
I have to admit, when I first read that, the idea of taking my living room vacuum cleaner, the same one I use on my area rugs, taking the little plastic crevice attachment and sticking it inside a kitchen appliance felt bizarre.
It feels like crossing a boundary.
It really does.
Yeah.
But when you stop and think about the physics of what we're trying to achieve, it makes perfect, undeniable sense. It's literally just sweeping before you mop.
Exactly. Why do we suddenly forget the most basic rules of floor cleaning just because we are looking at a raised box instead of the ground?
We compartmentalize tasks in our brains based on context. An oven feels like a specialized zone, so we forget general cleaning logic.
But the logic of this order of operations is deeply rooted in physics and chemical efficiency. Let's think about what happens if you ignore the dry excavation and immediately spray a heavy liquid cleaner directly onto a pile of loose, dry breadcrumbs, ash, and carbonized cheese. What is the physical result?
You just make a horrifying thick mud. You're creating a swamp at the bottom of your oven.
You create a highly alkaline, toxic mud, and here is why that is a disaster from a chemistry standpoint. You paid good money for a chemical cleaner specifically engineered to attack the microscopic layers of bonded, baked-on grease.
Right.
But chemicals are indiscriminate. They will react with whatever they touch first.
I see.
If you spray them onto loose ash and crumbs, all of that potent chemical energy is wasted soaking into loose dirt that you could have simply brushed away with zero effort.
So you are rapidly diluting the actual cleaning power of this spray.
Severely diluting it. The liquid is absorbed by the porous crumbs instead of sitting on top of the polymerized grease where it belongs.
That makes total sense.
Furthermore, you are making the eventual wipe-down process infinitely messier. Instead of wiping away a thin layer of emulsified grease, you are now trying to scoop out mounds of chemical-soaked sludge. It will take you 10 times as many paper towels and create incredibly frustrating streaks.
The muddy paste imagery is so vivid you're just pushing wet dirt around an oven floor, achieving absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all.
Okay, before we move on to tackling the real baked-on grease, that actually reminds me that speaking of professional cleaning tactics for the home, if you're dealing with stubborn stains, not just in the oven, but, on your floors, you should really check out Kindeke Carpet Cleaning on Google.
Oh, absolutely. They do incredible work.
Yeah, just search Kindeke Carpet Cleaning on Google. It's a game changer for your home's carpets. But anyway, back to our empty oven. We just vacuumed it out.
Yep, the dry excavation is completely finished. The loose stuff is gone.
Well, wait. For the slightly stuck-on bits, like our carbonized cheese meteorite, the pros suggest taking a simple, cheap, plastic putty knife and just gently tapping or scraping the base of the cheese to pop it loose, and then vacuuming that up too.
Using a plastic putty knife is a very intentional choice by the pro. Plastic is softer than the enamel coating of the oven floor.
Oh, so it won't scratch.
Exactly. We will get into the specific material science of scratching later, but using plastic ensures you can apply force to dislodge the burnt food without any risk of gouging the surface.
Brilliant. Okay, so now the playing field is officially cleared. Now we are finally facing the real enemy, which is the bonded, baked-on grease coating the walls and the door.
And the source material presents two very distinct, professionally tested paths for us to choose from here.
Right. You can take the all-natural route, or you can bring in the store-bought heavy artillery.
Let's start by exploring the all-natural path, because this is where the most significant piece of myth-busting in the entire masterclass takes place.
Oh, I am so ready for this.
If you go online right now and search how to clean an oven naturally, you will be inundated with thousands of blogs, TikToks, and articles recommending the exact same DIY holy grail, a mixture of baking soda and vinegar.
It is everywhere. It's the foundational recipe of the internet cleaning community.
But the professional cleaner issues a massive, crucial, almost aggressive warning here. Do not mix them together.
And I have to say, I had to pause and reread this section 3 times because I have been doing this wrong my entire adult life.
You and millions of other well-intentioned people, the visual feedback of mixing those two ingredients is incredibly deceiving.
It really is.
The source explicitly states that combining them in a bowl before applying them to the oven is a terrible idea that renders both ingredients useless. Instead, if you want to use them, you must use them in tandem, sequentially.
Let's break down the correct sequential method first before we dive into why the internet method is a scam.
Sure. Step 1 of the natural route is to take plain baking soda and mix it with just a tiny, tiny amount of water.
So you aren't trying to dissolve it.
No, you are trying to create a thick, gritty, almost mortar-like paste. The consistency is key here. You want it to feel like wet sand.
Wet sand, okay.
You apply that thick paste to the greasy oven walls, and then you have to scrub hard. The baking soda in this context is not acting as a chemical degreaser. It is acting as a physical abrasive.
Oh.
Baking soda, or sodium bicarbonate, has a crystalline structure that is hard enough to physically scrape and break the surface tension of the grease, but mild enough not to severely scratch the enamel.
To basically using it like a mild liquid sandpaper, you're physically tearing open the grease layer.
Exactly. It's pure mechanical friction. Once you've done that grueling mechanical scrubbing and loosened the grease, you wipe away all that gritty, dirty paste with a damp towel.
Okay, so the baking soda is gone.
Right. Only then, after the baking soda is gone, do you move to step 2 and bring in the vinegar. You spray the vinegar onto the newly exposed surface. The vinegar acts as a mild acid to cut through whatever residual thin film of grease is left behind, leaving a clean finish.
Okay, I understand the sequence, but I have to play devil's advocate here because the internet hack is so incredibly satisfying. Why can't I just mix the baking soda and the vinegar in a big glass bowl, watch it foam up into a massive bubbling volcano, and then smear that foaming mixture all over the oven walls?
Because of the fizz.
Yeah, the bubbles make it feel like it's actively eating the grime. It looks like scrubbing bubbles.
This is one of my favorite topics because it perfectly highlights the absolute disconnect between human psychological perception and actual chemical reality. We are biologically wired to associate foaming and bubbling with cleaning power.
We really are.
But let's look at the actual acid-base chemical equation happening in that bowl. Baking soda is a base, specifically sodium bicarbonate. Vinegar is a weak acid, specifically a dilute solution of acetic acid.
Right, the classic science fair volcano ingredients.
When you combine an acid and a base, they immediately undergo a rapid neutralization reaction. The acetic acid donates a proton to the sodium bicarbonate. This reaction breaks the molecules apart and forces them to rearrange.
And that rearrangement is what creates the massive, satisfying fizz that we all love.
Yes, but what is that fizz, physically? The fizz is nothing but carbon dioxide gas, CO2. It's the exact same gas that makes soda fizzy.
Right.
The bubbles are literally just air escaping into the atmosphere. They have absolutely zero cleaning power. They aren't scrubbing anything. They are just aggressively fleeing the bowl.
Wait, hold on. So the bubbles are just a visual light show of gas escaping. But once the bubbling stops, which only takes, what, 10 or 15 seconds? What is actually left over in the bowl that I am dipping my sponge into?
Once the bubbling ceases, the chemical neutralization is complete. You have successfully destroyed both the base and the acid. What remains in your bowl is mostly water, along with a newly formed compound called sodium acetate, which is essentially just a very weak, dilute salt.
Are you kidding me?
I am not.
So when I mix them together, wait for the foam to die down, and then start scrubbing my oven, I am literally just cleaning with slightly salty water.
You are scrubbing your oven with basic, mildly salty water. That's the tragic irony of the internet hack. By combining them, you have completely stripped the baking soda of its gritty, alkaline, abrasive power, and you have completely stripped the vinegar of its acidic, degreasing power.
Wow.
They cancel each other out perfectly. The fizz is a psychological placebo. It tricks our brains into thinking we've engineered a super cleaner, when in stark reality, we've actively neutralized and destroyed the active cleaning properties of both ingredients before they ever touch the oven.
That is genuinely mind-blowing. I feel betrayed by Pinterest. I am fully admitting right now to falling for this trick for years.
It's so common.
I have spent hours upon hours scrub brushing entirely useless, room temperature salt water into my appliances, getting so frustrated and wondering why it was taking so much elbow grease to get a tiny spot of grease off.
And that frustration is exactly why the professional cleaner warns that even if you use the natural ingredients correctly in tandem, as a paste then a spray, the natural method inherently demands a massive amount of physical effort.
Because it's so mild.
Right, it absolutely works, but because the chemical reactions are so mild, you have to compensate with intense mechanical friction. You have to be ready to sweat.
Which brings us nicely to the second path. The path for those of us who have perhaps neglected our ovens for 3 years, or who simply want to preserve our lower backs. The chemical route. The heavy artillery.
If you opt for the heavy artillery, the source material specifically highlights ZEP oven and grill cleaner as a highly effective professional-grade option.
Okay, Seb.
This isn't your standard, everyday, all-purpose kitchen spray. We are moving from mild household acids into the realm of potent caustic alkalis. Usually, these industrial cleaners rely on chemicals like sodium hydroxide, commonly known as lye.
Which means the safety protocols shift dramatically. This isn't something you casually spritz while holding a baby in one arm and talking on the phone. The warnings in the masterclass are incredibly serious.
With heavy-duty chemistry comes heavy-duty responsibility. Sodium hydroxide works through a process called saponification.
Saponification.
Yes, it literally reacts with the baked-on fats and oils and converts them into a crude form of soap, making them water-soluble.
Oh, that's wild. It turns the grease into soap.
Exactly. But that same chemical reaction will happily occur with the oils and proteins in your own skin.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's why the pro insists that proper PPE, personal protective equipment, is absolutely non-negotiable.
Absolutely. We're talking thick rubber gloves, pull up high to protect your skin and wrists, and actual safety glasses to protect your eyes from any microscopic aerosolized splashback when you spray.
And ventilation is equally critical. You are spraying a highly caustic substance designed to melt carbonized organic matter. You do not want those concentrated fumes accumulating in your kitchen, and you certainly do not want them in your lungs.
No, you must open the kitchen windows, turn on the overhead exhaust hood, and ideally run a fan to keep the air cycling.
But beyond protecting yourself, there is a fascinating structural warning here about protecting the oven itself. The source explicitly states that you must identify and protect any stainless steel components inside or around the appliance.
This is a really good point.
A lot of modern ovens have stainless steel trim on the door, or even a shiny stainless steel floor panel to reflect heat. The pro says you must physically cover those specific areas with dry towels before you even uncap the cleaner. What is the chemistry there? What does this stuff do to stainless steel?
This is a crucial metallurgical detail. The source notes that the heavy-duty cleaner will etch the metal.
Etch it.
Yes. Etching is a corrosive, irreversible chemical process. Stainless steel gets its name and its rust resistance from a microscopic invisible layer of chromium oxide on its surface.
Okay.
When the high alkalinity of a cleaner like ZEP comes into contact with that protective chromium oxide layer, it forcefully reacts with it and strips it away.
So it's literally eating the protective skin off the metal.
It eats right into the metal matrix. If you let that spray sit on a stainless steel trim piece, it will leave permanent, cloudy, pitted, whitish stains. And because it's a chemical burn into the metal itself, you can never just polish it out. You will have permanently scarred the aesthetics and the rust resistance of your expensive appliance simply because of overspray.
Okay, that is a terrifying but necessary warning. So you've made your choice. You've got your natural baking soda paste ready to scrub, or you're completely suited up with goggles and gloves with your heavy-duty spray. You apply the product evenly across the dark interior.
Right.
You gently lift the snake-like heating element at the bottom to spray underneath it, because gravity dictates that's where all the grease pools and hides. If you accidentally get some chemical spray directly on the heating element itself, no panic. Just wipe it off with a damp towel so it doesn't burn later. And then you wait.
The waiting game. And this step requires a fundamental shift in how we interpret cleaning product instructions.
Right, because if you look at the back of almost any commercial oven cleaner bottle, the instructions will confidently tell you to spray, wait 10 minutes, and wipe clean. But the professional in our source material says to completely ignore the manufacturer's own label.
You have to understand that the 10-minute instruction on the bottle is a marketing compromise, not a scientific reality. Companies know that consumers value speed and convenience above almost everything else.
Of course.
If a bottle says wait 1 hour, consumers will buy the competitor's bottle that says wait 10 minutes, assuming it's a stronger, faster formula.
It's a psychological shelf war.
Precisely. Or rather, exactly the kind of deceptive marketing that forces us to work harder. The professional reality, tested across thousands of dirty ovens, is that you need to wait anywhere from 30 minutes to a full 60 minutes for the chemistry to actually peak.
A full hour. That feels like an eternity when you're in the middle of cleaning the kitchen.
It does, but this circles back to our earlier discussion about dwell time. What is actually happening during that hour? You are waiting for the process of emulsification to fully complete.
Let's dig into that. I synthesized the word emulsification as mixing oil and water, like shaking up a vinaigrette salad dressing. But what is mechanically happening inside the dark oven while I am sitting on the couch for an hour watching TV?
Well, the heavy baked-on grease in your oven is intensely hydrophobic. It violently repels water. That's why you can't just wipe it away with a wet rag. The water literally beads up and rolls off the fat.
Right.
When you spray the caustic cleaner, the strong alkalis and solvents need time to physically penetrate the tough outer shell of that grease polymer we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Once inside, they begin breaking the cross-linked molecular bonds.
They're dismantling the scaffolding of the grease.
Yes. The cleaner is slowly, methodically converting that hard, stubborn, water-repelling matrix into a soft, soapy, highly water-soluble substance.
That's a saponification process?
Exactly. That chemical transformation is emulsification in this context.
Yeah.
You are transforming the enemy into something that willingly mixes with the water on your sponge.
Wow.
But that complex chemical reaction is fundamentally slow. It has to chew through microscopic layer after microscopic layer. If you get impatient and wipe it after the 10 minutes that the bottle suggested, you are interrupting the process halfway through.
And then what?
You wipe away the top layer of soft sludge, but you expose the hard, unbroken grease underneath, and now you're back to aggressively scrubbing with your own muscles.
Which completely defeats the purpose of buying the heavy-duty chemical in the first place. We need to respect the chemistry and let it do the labor.
Absolutely.
Wait. This brings up the massive, glowing elephant in the room. We are talking about buying specialized chemicals, wearing safety goggles, worrying about etching our stainless steel, and waiting a full hour. Why not just bypass this entire elaborate production?
I know where you're going with this.
Every modern oven produced in the last 20 years has a digital dashboard with a dedicated button that literally says self-clean. Why don't I just press that magic button and walk away?
Because, according to both the professional cleaner and the myriad of appliance repair technicians they consulted for this masterclass, pressing that self-clean button is quite possibly one of the most destructive things you can do to your appliance.
Really?
The source material is unequivocal here. Never use the self-clean function.
It's marketed as the ultimate luxury convenience. You press it, the door locks, and it just handles it. But the video says it is a massive, legitimate fire hazard. How does the self-clean actually work? I always vaguely assumed it released some sort of hidden chemical vapor inside.
There are no hidden chemicals. The self-clean function relies entirely on extreme thermal stress. It's a process called pyrolytic cleaning.
Pyrolytic cleaning.
When you press that button, the oven forcefully locks the door shut, bypasses its normal cooking temperature limits, and dramatically increases the ambient heat inside the cavern. We are talking about sustaining temperatures approaching 800 or even 900 degrees Fahrenheit for several hours.
800 degrees. That is terrifying. Most recipes max out at 450. What is 800 degrees supposed to achieve?
The goal of pyrolytic cleaning is to literally incinerate the baked-on grease and food particles. It brings the organic matter past its ignition point, reducing the carbon polymers into a pile of loose white ash that you can simply wipe out later.
Okay, on paper, from a pure physics standpoint, incineration makes sense.
It works in theory. But in the reality of a modern residential kitchen, it is a recipe for disaster.
Because that immense heat doesn't just magically stay confined to the interior cavern.
Exactly. Heat radiates. And an oven is a complex machine full of sensitive parts. The source points out several catastrophic failure points during a self-clean cycle.
Like what?
First, the extreme heat can permanently warp the metal racks if you forget to take them out, and it can damage the specialized enamel coating over time. Second, ovens have internal thermal fuses designed to pop and cut the power if the machine gets dangerously hot.
Which is a safety feature to prevent your house from burning down.
Right. The self-clean cycle pushes the oven so close to the edge of that danger zone that it frequently trips and melts these thermal fuses, essentially bricking the oven so it won't turn on again until a repairman comes to take it apart.
So you're paying a repair technician hundreds of dollars because you tried to clean it, but the most incredible failure point to me was the electronics.
Yes, the control boards. Think about where the digital dashboard is located on most ovens. It's usually right above the door or on a back panel directly above the heating cavity.
That heat rises.
Exactly. Subjecting that area to 800 degrees means the delicate silicon circuit boards, the solder joints, and the plastic ribbon cables powering your oven's smart features are slowly roasting.
That's crazy.
The masterclass notes that repair technicians constantly replace melted, shorted out control panels that completely failed immediately following a self-clean cycle. The plastic overlays literally get wonky and warp.
Which raises an incredibly frustrating question. If this feature is literally melting delicate control panels, blowing internal safety fuses, and acting as a legitimate documented fire hazard, why on earth is it standard on almost every single oven sold today? Why do manufacturers include it?
It's a fascinating look at how engineering reality and marketing demands are completely at odds in the modern appliance industry. Consumers are conditioned to demand magic solutions and maximum convenience. When an average person walks into a big box store to shop for a new oven, they compare feature lists.
Right. Look at all the little bullet points.
If oven A has a self-clean button and oven B doesn't, the consumer almost universally buys oven A. They assume oven B is inferior, older, or cheaper.
Because we are obsessed with the idea of not doing chores.
Right. So appliance manufacturers are effectively forced to include this feature just to stay competitive in the market showroom.
Wow.
Their own structural engineers know perfectly well that subjecting modern, delicate silicon microchips to 800 degrees of ambient radiating heat is a terrible idea that drastically shortens the lifespan of the machine.
But the marketing department overrules the engineers.
Exactly. They are quite literally selling you a self-destruct button because consumer purchasing habits demanded it.
That is wild to think about. We are blindly trusting a button that is statistically likely to destroy our appliance just because we want a shortcut.
It's unfortunate, but true.
So the verdict is definitive. Ignore the self-clean button as if it doesn't exist. Embrace the chemistry instead. Let the chemical cleaner do its 60-minute dwell time. Which brings us to the moment of truth.
Yes.
The hour is up. The grease has successfully emulsified into a soft, wipeable substance. Now comes the physical extraction phase.
And as anyone who has ever attempted to clean an oven knows, getting any kind of leverage inside that cavern is ergonomically terrible.
It's the worst part. You have this heavy door folded down between you and the oven cavity. You are forced to lean over it, bending your spine at an unnatural angle, reaching blindly into the dark back corners, trying to scrub while basically doing a core workout.
It ruins your lower back within 5 minutes.
It really does. Which is why the source material highlights a brilliant, often hidden mechanical feature on many modern ovens, which is removable doors.
Most people don't realize this, but if you look closely at the hinges where the door connects to the oven frame, there are usually little metal latches or levers.
Right.
If you flip those latches up, you can lift the entire heavy oven door straight up and off the appliance. You can set it aside on a blanket.
That changes everything. Suddenly, the obstacle is gone. You can step right up to the literal edge of the oven cavity. You can easily reach the back wall. It changes the entire ergonomic geometry of the chore.
It makes a night and day difference for your back. However, there's a massive caution attached to this step.
Of course.
The source vehemently warns that an oven door is incredibly heavy. It contains multiple panes of thick, tempered glass designed to trap heat. It is not a one-handed job.
Right. You really need two people to lift it off safely.
And crucially, you must consult your specific manufacturer's manual or look up a video for your exact model before you try it. If you unlock the hinge incorrectly, the heavy spring mechanism can snap back violently.
Oh, that sounds dangerous.
Or worse, you could drop the door and shatter the tempered glass all over your kitchen floor.
So it's a high reward, but high risk maneuver. Proceed with extreme caution, consult the manual, get a friend to help. But if you can do it safely, your spine will thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have access, the door is off, the wiping begins. What is the optimal tool for pulling this emulsified sludge out of the oven?
The professional specifically recommends using damp microfiber towels. Microfiber is vastly superior to standard cotton rags or paper towels in this scenario.
Why is that?
A microfiber towel is composed of millions of microscopic split synthetic fibers. These split fibers act like tiny hooks that mechanically grab, trap, and hold on to the emulsified grease, lifting it away from the surface.
And a normal paper towel?
A standard cotton towel or paper towel tends to just smear the grease around, acting more like a squeegee than a trap.
So the key technique mentioned here is working in small sections and constantly rinsing the towel in the sink.
Yes, because those microscopic hooks fill up fast. If you don't rinse the towel frequently with hot water and a little dish soap in the sink, you quickly saturate the fabric.
And once it's full,
Once the microfiber is full of grease, it stops tracking and starts depositing. You end up just painting a thin, frustrating layer of grease back onto the walls you just cleaned.
okay, so we are wiping with our microfiber, and the emulsified grease is coming off beautifully, revealing the original enamel. But inevitably, you hit the floor of the oven and you encounter it.
The stubborn patch.
Yes, that stubborn elevated patch of rock-hard char. It's a spot where maybe sugar spilled and baked on for 2 years. It absolutely will not budge, even after the hour-long chemical soak. It lasts at your microfiber towel.
You all have that spot.
The Pro Cleaner calls out a very specific secret weapon for this exact scenario, the razor blade scraper.
This is a professional level tactic, and I understand why it makes people nervous. It relies heavily on the physical science of materials and friction.
Right, because when an amateur hears take a sharp razor blade to your expensive oven, their immediate thought is, I'm going to scratch the enamel to pieces and ruin it.
Exactly.
I am that amateur. I love the concept of the razor blade for getting under that raised char. It makes logical sense. But I have a very healthy fear of it. I can just picture my hand slipping and taking a massive silver gouge out of the dark blue enamel on the bottom of my oven.
The key to this technique, and the absolute unbreakable rule the professional insists upon, is the lubrication layer.
Lubrication layer.
You must never, ever take a dry razor blade to a dry oven floor. Before you scrape, you must apply a little bit more of your liquid chemical cleaner or even just some soapy water directly to the stubborn spot to act as a liquid lubricant.
Why does a millimeter of liquid make such a fundamental difference? Does it soften the enamel?
No, it doesn't soften the enamel. It alters the friction coefficient between the two hard materials. Enamel is essentially a specialized type of glass fused to metal. It is very hard and very smooth. When properly lubricated, the perfectly flat, straight steel edge of the razor blade will hydroplane. It will glide microscopically over the smooth glass enamel surface on a thin film of liquid, while simultaneously wedging its incredibly sharp edge under the raised, baked-on char.
Wow, so it slides right underneath.
The blade acts as a wedge, cleanly lifting the char off the glass without the sharp edge ever biting down into the enamel itself. The liquid prevents the blade from skipping, shattering, or digging in.
That is fascinating physics.
Mm-hmm.
And the source has another major non-negotiable rule regarding the razor blade.
Mm-hmm.
Always use a brand new, completely rust-free blade directly out of the wrapper. Why is that so important? I have an old scraper in my toolbox with a tiny speck of rust on the corner. Why is that a deal breaker?
Because of how oxidation, or rust, alters the microscopic geometry of the blade's edge.
Yeah.
A fresh razor blade out of the factory wrapper has a perfectly smooth, continuous microscopic edge. It distributes your pushing pressure perfectly evenly across the glass.
Makes sense.
But rust is oxidized steel. As steel oxidizes, it expands, pits, and flakes. Even a microscopic speck of rust on the very edge of the blade means the metal is compromised.
Oh, I see where this is going.
That rusty edge is no longer flat. It is essentially serrated. It has microscopic jagged teeth.
Oh.
Those jagged oxidized teeth will instantly cut right through your thin lubrication layer and grind directly into the glass enamel. You will permanently scratch and scar the finish of your oven in a single swipe.
So the rules for the razor blade are strict. Slow, gentle, always heavily lubricated, and always a fresh blade straight out of the paper wrapper. If you follow those rules, it sounds like absolute magic for those impossible burnt spots.
Really this.
Now, what about the textured sidewalls or the rounded corners in the back where a perfectly flat, stiff razor blade simply won't fit or conform to the shape? Sometimes you still need to apply some mechanical scrubbing power.
For those areas where scrubbing is unavoidable, the Pro recommends very specific tools. Modern engineered sponges like the Scrub Daddy or the Scour Daddy.
Oh yeah, the ones with the smiley faces.
Yes. These are fantastic innovations in cleaning technology because they alter their firmness based on the water temperature you use. But, more importantly, the polymer foam they are made of is fundamentally a non-scratch material.
Okay, so they won't damage the oven.
Right. They provide the necessary physical abrasion to tear off the grease without being hard enough to damage the oven finish.
And this leads to another massive, flashing red light warning from the Pro. We've talked about what to use, But the source issues a severe warning about what never to use inside your oven.
Yes, never ever use those standard aggressive green or yellow scrubbing pads.
You know the ones I'm talking about, the classic stiff green scouring pads that come in a cheap multi-pack at every grocery store in the world?
It is vital to understand the material science of why those generic green pads are so incredibly destructive to appliances. It comes down to the Mohs scale of mineral
The
hardness.
Mohs scale, right, like how a diamond can scratch glass.
Exactly. The Mohs scale measures the ability of a harder material to scratch a softer material. Those aggressive green scouring pads aren't just made of rough plastic fiber. The nylon matrix is actually heavily embedded with microscopic abrasive minerals,
Minerals, like what?
very frequently aluminum oxide or similar abrasive compounds.
Wait, there are actual crushed minerals embedded inside the plastic of the green sponge.
Yes. That's exactly why they are so unbelievably good at stripping burned, stuck-on food off a raw cast iron skillet or a stainless steel grill grate. They're basically a flexible form of sandpaper.
Okay, but here's the problem.
Right. The dark, glossy interior of your oven is coated in a layer of baked enamel, which, as we established, is a type of glass. On the Mohs hardness scale, glass enamel sits around a 5 or a 6.
And the aluminum oxide.
Aluminum oxide, the mineral in the green sponge, sits at a 9.
Oh, wow.
It is significantly harder than the glass. If you scrub the oven wall with a green pad, you are literally grinding thousands of microscopic scratches deep into the glass finish.
So you are basically sandblasting the inside of your oven. And the source notes that this isn't just an aesthetic issue where the oven looks dull.
Right, it's structural.
Over time, as you repeatedly use those green sponges, those microscopic scratches deepen. They eventually penetrate completely through the thin layer of glass enamel, exposing the raw, untreated steel underneath.
And then the moisture gets in.
Exactly. Once that raw metal is exposed to the humid, high-heat environment of baking, the interior of your oven will slowly start to rust from the inside out. The structural integrity of the metal walls will fail, all because you reached for the wrong $2 sponge.
It's a cascading failure of the appliance, initiated by a fundamental misunderstanding of material science.
Yeah.
Always stick to the engineered, non-scratch modern sponges for enamel.
Incredible. And a quick note on the ceiling of the oven before we finish the interior. The heating coil up there, the broiler element, usually doesn't detach or fold down like the bottom one might. It's fixed in place. The pro's advice here is wonderfully pragmatic. Don't force it. Don't try to unbolt it. Just wipe carefully, scrub gently around the element, and rinse the ceiling as best you can without bending or stressing that vital top coil.
Pragmatism is key. You are aiming for a clean, functional kitchen, not a sterilized operating room. You do not want to accidentally snap the mounting brackets of the broiler element while trying to achieve absolute perfection on a spot no one will ever see.
Okay, so the interior of the oven is finally shining. The deep black or blue enamel is restored. The walls are wiped down. The stubborn char is scraped away. The ceiling is clean. But our mission isn't completely over.
No, we have to rewind the clock all the way back to step 1. We left our metal oven rack soaking in the bathtub in a pool of warm water and a Cascade dishwasher pod.
This is the moment where we see the absolute brilliance of the dwell time strategy pay off in real time.
Those racks have been quietly soaking in a highly concentrated enzyme bath for the entire hour you spent laboring over the oven interior.
The microscopic Pac-Men have been feasting.
They have. The proteases and lipases in the dishwasher pod have been methodically digesting the cross-linked structural integrity of that baked-on grease. They have severed the molecular bonds holding the grime to the metal wires.
So when you finally return to the bathtub,
What would have historically been a grueling hour-long scrubbing session over the sink turns into a remarkably simple wipe-down. The source notes that the vast majority of the softened grease should now just wipe away easily with a few passes of the Scour Daddy sponge.
you're just wiping away the digested remnants.
Exactly. But the pro does acknowledge reality. Sometimes, depending on how many years it has been since you last deep cleaned the oven, or if you cook a lot of heavy roasts, you might still encounter some incredibly stubborn, polymerized grease clinging desperately to the tight interlocking corners of the wire grates.
And for those specific trouble spots, the pros suggest upgrading your abrasive tool one final time. But again, you have to do it carefully.
The recommendation for those extreme tight corner cases is ultrafine steel wool. Specifically, you must look for grade 0000.
4-0 steel wool. I've seen that in the hardware store, usually in the woodworking or painting aisle.
Yes, Grade 0000 is the absolute finest grade of steel wool commercially available. It is so fine that if you rub it against your face, it feels almost soft to the touch, like metallic cotton.
Wow.
The individual steel wires are microscopic. This allows the pad to easily and aggressively cut through the remaining hardened grease on the metal racks. But because the wires are so incredibly fine and fragile, they bend and break before they can leave visible, deep scratches on the thick steel wire of the rack itself.
It's an aggressive cleaner that acts delicately.
Exactly.
So you polish the racks in the tub, and suddenly they are gleaming silver again. You dry them off with a towel. But before we proudly slide them back into the oven, there is one final, incredibly critical step at the oven itself. The final polish.
This step is less about visual aesthetics and entirely about health, safety, and air quality. The source insists that you must perform one final, meticulous wipe down of the entire oven interior.
You take a perfectly clean, damp microfiber towel and wipe every inch of the walls, floor, and door. Then, you follow that immediately with a completely dry microfiber towel, buffing the surface bone dry.
The goal here is absolute, 100% chemical extraction.
Precisely. Think about what we just did. You coated the interior of a confined metal box with a heavy-duty, highly alkaline chemical cleaner like the ZEP sodium hydroxide spray. Or, even if you use the natural method, you coated it in baking soda paste.
Right.
If you get lazy at the very end and leave even a thin, invisible film of that chemical residue clinging to the walls of the oven, what do you think is going to happen next Tuesday when you decide to bake a batch of chocolate chip cookies?
You turn the oven dial to 400 degrees, the coils heat up, and you instantly bake and vaporize that chemical residue.
And it aggressively off-gases into your kitchen. The thermal decomposition of those remaining chemicals will cause the oven to smoke profusely.
It will smell terrible, like burning plastic or harsh bleach.
And it will very likely taint the flavor of your food with aerosolized caustic chemicals. Nobody wants cookies that taste like lye.
Not at all. The final wet then dry wipe ensures that the interior glass enamel surface is 100% neutralized, bare, and pristine. Absolutely zero chemical residue is left behind to burn.
Once that final buffing is done, it is time for the grand finale, the reassembly. You carefully, preferably with that partner who helped you earlier, lift and reattach that heavy glass door, making absolutely sure the metal hinges are fully seated and the safety latches are securely locked back into place.
And then you take those sparkling, clean, gleaming silver metal racks from the bathroom and you slide them smoothly back into the dark blue cavern of the oven.
And there it is. You stand back and look at a masterpiece.
If we connect all these individual steps back to the bigger picture, this entire process proves a fundamental point about home maintenance.
Which is?
Taking the time to understand the science, to set up the proper chemical conditions like the enzyme soak in the bathtub, and to respect dwell time saves massive amounts of physical labor at the finish line.
You didn't just scrub blindly. You orchestrated a chemical dismantling of the mess. You let the science do the heavy lifting.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means that the deep satisfaction of sliding those gleaming metal racks into a perfectly clean, sparkling oven isn't just a fantasy reserved for people who hire professional cleaning services. It's a totally achievable reality for you this weekend, if you simply follow the right scientific steps and use the right tools.
And by the way, if you want a physical cheat sheet for all of this so you don't have to memorize the chemistry, the Pro Cleaner from our source material actually offers beautifully designed, downloadable PDF guides of these exact methods via their Patreon page, which they affectionately call the Clean Squad.
It's a great way to support their educational work and keep these crucial steps handy on your phone while you work.
Having a physical checklist is an excellent idea to ensure you don't accidentally skip the crucial safety steps like the PPE or mess up the order of operations between the dry and wet cleaning.
Let's quickly summarize the critical shifts in mindset we've explored today from the Clean That Up masterclass. We learned to abandon the useless, slippery surfactants of dish soap when dealing with polymers, and instead embrace the targeted power of enzymes by soaking our racks in a dishwasher pod.
We learned the vital, often skipped importance of the dry excavation, vacuuming the loose debris and the pizza cheese meteorites before we ever apply liquid so we don't just push toxic, muddy paste around the floor.
We also dismantled arguably the biggest DIY cleaning myth of the century. We learned that mixing baking soda and vinegar in a bowl just creates a visually satisfying but chemically useless batch of salty water.
We learned that to harness their power naturally, they must be used sequentially. Baking soda first as a mechanical abrasive, and vinegar second as a mild acidic degreaser.
We learned to fundamentally respect the dwell time, giving heavy-duty alkaline cleaners a full 30 to 60 minutes to actually break the molecular bonds and emulsify the grease.
We learned the precise physics of the razor blade, always heavily lubricated, always rust-free, always a low angle.
We learned to immediately throw away those scratchy green sponges infused with aluminum oxide that are secretly destroying our glass enamel and causing rust. And perhaps most importantly of all, we learned to completely ignore the treacherous, appliance-melting, circuit board roasting self-clean button.
And that final point regarding the self-clean function is exactly where I want to leave you with a lingering thought today. We've just spent this time dissecting the fact that the incredibly convenient, highly marketed self-clean button on your oven dashboard is actually a massive hazard that is statistically likely to destroy your machine.
Right.
And we learned that the deeply satisfying visual fizz of mixing household cleaners is nothing but a chemical illusion that actively strips them of their power.
It really makes you wonder about the rest of the house.
It does. It raises a very important question for you to mull over as you walk around your home today.
What's that?
What other heavily marketed conveniences, rapid results buttons, or viral internet hacks in your daily life are you blindly trusting? What else looks like it's working but might actually be completely ineffective, or worse, doing permanent, hidden harm to the things you value?
That is a brilliant question to ponder. Sometimes the shortcut they sell us is actually the longest, most expensive way around. Well, before we officially wrap up, just one more quick reminder: if you need professional help with your carpets and floors, don't forget to look up Kindeke carpet cleaning on Google.
They are fantastic. Highly recommend checking them out.
Yes, search Kindeke carpet cleaning on Google. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you approach your next daunting household chore, not just with brute elbow grease, but with a little bit of chemistry, a lot of patience, and exactly the right tools. Thank you for listening to The Best Way to Clean Your Oven Like a Pro podcast.